So this video is a supporting video of a full stack course in this playlist. So this talks about the main elements of the computer. So if you have a good understanding on these three elements, it's very helpful for you throughout this course when you're writing the code or when you're solving the problems. This understanding will help you. So if any issue happens, right, it will take you to the right point so you can solve it. Okay, so if you look at this diagram, you have laptop, desktop, right? And apart from this, we also have in this in today's world, we have mobiles, a lot of devices, right? Everywhere it's the same concept. Every device will have RAM, CPU, and hard disk. What is RAM? RAM stands for random access memory. CPU stands for central processing unit, and hard disk, it's straightforward, right? It is something to store the information, right? So what you need to understand here is when you're working in software world, you'll be writing programs, you'll be interacting with it, in many ways. All it has is these three elements, which is what keeps the computer to do its functionality, right? You can compare this to the real world, like to the person, right? What person has? Person has mind, person has body, right? Person has a lot of other elements like eyes, nose, teeth, So likewise, a computer has keyboard, keys, monitor, hard disk, a lot of elements too. So, but the main elements are these three. So whenever you want to interact with the computer, everything that you do, for example, if you take mobile, you touch on the screen, right? You press on some button. Behind the scenes, it executes some software that involves this RAM, CPU, and hard disk. What is RAM and why do we need it? RAM is just a memory. For computer to perform some operations, it needs to store some information while it is processing those. For that, it needs some memory. So computer will take those things and will keep them there, and as it's needing those elements, it will use that. It will access that from memory, and again it will put those back to memory, right? So if you look at the flow here, so basically imagine if you have something like you wrote some code, okay? It will have bunch of lines of code, right? So when we execute this program on the computer, for example, let's take a real-time task. So you opened one folder, right? You do this in your daily life. You go to laptop or desktop, you open up one folder, you double click on this, right? What this does is gonna open a folder, right? What happened there, when we double click that, behind the scenes, this will execute some software. Imagine this is the software, right? This is the piece of software that is written to address this opening the folder. So what happens is this gets executed. How does that get executed? These instructions will be passed to this machine. This machine will process them. Here the CPU, central processing unit, that unit will process all these instructions, and while it is processing, if it has to store some of the information in memory, what this does is this will store them here, and this will keep accessing them and put them back again. As it's needing those things, it will go back and forth, and eventually it will produce the result, right? And all these folders, all the data, where is this getting stored? On the machine. On this machine, these folders are getting stored in hard disk. So in your day-to-day life, the photos that you see, you might have interacted with a lot of photos, right? A lot of movies you would have stored. You do a lot of copying data from outside, right? All the data, when you store in your machine, all this gets stored onto the hard disk. Hard disk purpose is to store information permanently. So in this hard disk, we have different types of hardware, right? Some hard disks are so faster, you should be able to retrieve the information so faster. So these days there is a lot of architecture going on to build these hard disks, right? But you don't have to go too much deep into the technicalities of how the hard disk is built, the technology, or how CPU is built or RAM is built. You don't have to understand those internals to work in software field. If you are curious, want to explore, feel free. But to just work in software field, if you have enough understanding of what these element components are and why we use them and what role do they play, that kind of knowledge is enough. Okay. So with this understanding, right, think about if you have RAM of 2 GB 2 GB and central processing unit, you would have seen the configuration of the computer saying so many gigahertz of processor. That means it can process so many instructions per second, right? The more processing power, the more faster it will be, right? So here if you see 2 GB memory and 64 gigahertz processor, I gave some number. Just understand that the more the number, the more faster it will be. And hard disk, it can be 2 TB, right? It will be like 100 TB. So if you go to the bigger companies, it can be much bigger hard disk. So you might have seen this configuration. People will talk about when you buy a computer, where they will ask you, hey, what is the configuration? So how much is the memory? So these days you have 16 GB memory, 32 GB memory. They're so faster because it has a lot of memory, a lot of instructions can be stored and processed, right? And this memory and processing speed, they play a very important role when you run something on the computer. Sometimes you would have seen that you do something, you do click on some of the folder, or you open the browser and it hangs, right? You can't even move your cursor because system is so busy processing other stuff behind the scenes. It doesn't have enough space left or enough power left to take any more new instructions. That's why system gets hung, and you'd have to reboot the machine, right? All because it doesn't have enough RAM, enough CPU. So what we do at that time, we buy more RAM units and install them onto the machine, so it'll get more memory, right? So imagine this is about one machine. So always get back to this core concept. Whenever you are in this field, all it comes down to a smaller unit. If you can understand this smaller unit here, this whole thing, it doesn't matter how many number of machines that you deal with later on, it all gets combined. If you have 10 machines like this, every machine has its own RAM, CPU, and hard disk. That's all it is, right? So now you understand what the computer is, right? It has already a lot of software installed, so that's why you're able to operate on that machine, right? Now, what is your goal? Your goal is to develop a software, develop some software applications. So you want to work as a software engineer in software field, right? For that, by default, when you buy laptop or computer, you wouldn't have those software installed. You wouldn't have anything ready made. It is your job as a software engineer. You will interact with the machine. You use this machine as a tool, and you do develop a lot of things. So to develop or to talk to computer, you need a language, right? Like I said, it's everything. Anything that you are trying to understand in this computer world, always correlate that to your real life. Real life persons, they talk, right? People, they talk to each other. In the same way, when you want to talk to computer, you need a language. So in software world, we have lots of languages. Okay, so JavaScript, Java, Scala, Python. There are a lot of software languages. But in this course, we're gonna choose JavaScript as a language because these days Node.js is one of the softwares that made great revolution. Okay, so once you learn that language, you can use the same language everywhere throughout this software course, and you can do a lot of applications development just using JavaScript. Okay, and also it's easier to understand. Now, okay, I said we're gonna choose JavaScript. Well and good. How do I even start with this, and how do I interact with computer? Do I talk in JavaScript so system can understand? No, system cannot hear our words, right? And you cannot obviously talk in JavaScript language. What do? We input this language to the computer. So whenever we want to talk to computer, we write this language and then we send that information to computer so it will understand. Oh, okay, you want to do this? Okay, let me do that, and I'll give it. It does that operation, and it will generate some output, and we'll see that output on the screen. Okay, that's good. But does the computer can easily understand when we write some JavaScript? So let's say you bought this machine just now, right? It's a desktop or laptop. You just bought this from shop. So if I directly go and open the notepad on this laptop, if I type some JavaScript code, if I want to run that, can I run it? Can I able to run that on this laptop? No, you cannot. Because to run some language, the system has to have some knowledge about that language so it can understand that. By default, system doesn't know anything about this language. So what do? We need to provide some other software to this laptop or this desktop. So system will get that ability to understand the language. Okay, that's where this Node.js come into picture. What do? We take this Node.js software and then we'll install this into laptop and your desktop. So we can just say machine going forward from now on, right? We install Node.js software onto the machine. Now assume this is one machine and we installed Node.js here. So now this machine is capable of understanding JavaScript. Now if I go and write some JavaScript code, this guy can understand and run this program. Okay, so how do you run this? Assume you have this Node.js installed. All we have to do is we will open up the terminal on any machine. Terminal is one of the applications in Windows machine or Mac, right? You will just once you install this Node.js, you will verify node version, node-v. It will give you the version. So it's always better to know what version of node you are using, right? You keep getting these latest installations, so it's better to keep up to date. So once you check the node version, to run this JavaScript code, what you do is you go to the location where this file is located on these machines, and then you go open up the terminal and you will say node and then space JavaScript file name. Let's say this is test.js file. You provide this test.js name of the file as input to this node process so that it will run the code. So imagine you wrote some JavaScript code, right? To run this on any machine, we need to have Node.js installed. Once it is installed, you will provide node this file as an input to the node, and it will run the code. Okay, so this is the starting point of this whole full stack course. Okay, once you install the Node.js, then you're good to go. You just follow the course, and as you go through this course, you'll come across many other software installations. It's the same process. Imagine this diagram, remember this diagram, and this is just a machine. Whenever you want to install or you want to do some new functionality, if that requires some software to be installed, so this machine will become capable of understanding what you're going to do. Okay, so I can quickly show you the installation steps for Node.js. Let me clean up this diagram. For Macs, it's always better to install Brew on Macs. So if you have Brew, it's very easy to install any software on Mac. So first Brew install on Mac. Okay, look for that, and you have this Brew, the website. So you run this command that will install the Brew software. So once you install the Brew software, all you have to do is go back and Brew install node, right? All you have to do is go here. This is one of the websites I'm in. You can just follow. There are a lot of other websites as well, but feel free. All you have to do is just this step: Brew install node. That will install the node on your machine, and that's it. You can just check node version, and you can use node to run your JavaScript. Okay, so same thing, look for Node.js installation on Windows. Okay, so here, go here and take this is the main website of Node.js. I provide the link also in the description. Go for Windows installer and download that, and double click that, execute through the steps. That will be installed, and once that is installed, just open the terminal on Windows and or check for the node version, and remaining steps are all same. Okay, and I provided the links for the Windows installation also. So go through that, and if you have any questions, feel free to post in comments or reach out to my email, and I will get back to you as soon as possible. So with this knowledge, you can just focus on directly on the full stack course, right from writing the JavaScript programs, and feel free to post your questions and comments so I can help you as much as I can. Okay, bye.